Take two, folks. It wouldn't be a show with the Gunzpicks if we didn't have technical difficulties, but we should be back running. Please, if you see me, if you're in the chat, please let me know that the sound is working now. My apologies. My settings got a little bit skewed, and I think we should be online now. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the College Football Preview Show, SEC West Edition, episode number 1. And just to bring you up to speed on what this show is going to be going, it looks like Charlie says, yep, we are good to go. All right. This show is basically going to break down every single major conference team. I'm going to break it down team by team. I'm going to talk offense. I'm going to talk defense. I'm going to talk coaches. I'm also going to be talking about major games to watch this season that we can take advantage of as gamblers. And also, why not? I'll give you a few of my win total picks. Now, with win totals, I don't like tying my money up with the win totals from my perspective. I do have opinions on it of how these teams will perform this season, but I like to tie my money into week to week. You know, you always have injuries. You have a lot of outliers that happen during the college football season. And of course, you have teams that just could surprise you altogether. So, new format, new camera, and just going to be cocking the gun back all summer long, firing shots, and teaching you guys a little bit about how I'm capping this season altogether. But we're here to talk about the SEC West. But I want to bring everybody up to speed who hasn't been following me along for the past couple of years, whether you jumped on after the football season, whether you jumped on last year. You know how I performed in college football. But to bring everybody up to speed for full transparency purposes, 2022 season was one of my better seasons altogether. I was 169, 136, and 6, plus 45 units, 55.4% hit rate. We also put up plus 20 units in the bowl season, which is absolutely immaculate. Of course, picking our top play of the season with Georgia in the championship game versus TCU, which was too damn easy. But to bring you my last 3-year numbers here, 2020 to 2022, I am 440, 371, and 7 plus 80.2 units, baby. And that is 54.3% hit rate for my college football plays. We cock the gun, we fire all season. So make sure that you follow me along all season. We'll have guests, of course. It'll be me and the Shark on the College Football Knowledge for College every single week on Friday night. So you better check that out. But we're here just to break down the teams in major conferences here, folks. We're starting this off here big time with a lot of good teams on this one. It's going to be a little bit interesting. But before we start, we need to pump up the crowd with a little bit of the CBS logo here. Woo! Also, I want to give shout out to my sponsor here, Viva Tequila Seltzers. Great drink for your 4th of July celebrations. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 4.5 ABV. Go check them out at vivaseltzer.com. You can order them online or go check them at your local select I guess wine and beer stores. Woo! Here we go. We're going to start this off fully here with the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now, Mississippi State finished 9-4. Great season, winning their bowl game in tribute to Mike Leach, who they lost late in the season. I think after the regular season, he passed away. 4-4 in the conference. They bring back 12 returning starters, 8 on the offensive side and 4 on the defensive side. And also they bring back their star quarterback in Will Rogers. He's back to run the offense. Put up almost 4,000 yards passing last season, 35 touchdowns, 8 INTs. But we have to consider here, there's a lot of switchover in the coaching staff. And they got a new offensive coordinator in Kevin Barbay. He comes over from Appalachian State. If you know anything about Appalachian State, they're a more run-focused, run-generated type of team. Usually load up the backfield with running backs and usually have a mobile quarterback as well. So there's going to be a little bit more balance to this offense than what you've seen in the Mike Leach air raid era. So I think the stats for Will Rogers will drop, but I think his running will have to pick up if he wants to stay as the quarterback with the team here. Running back position is going to be a little bit interesting too because Marks Jr. does come back. He's their leading rusher, but he's always been just like a threat in the passing game. A lot of screen passes to generate a lot of the offense for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So it's going to be interesting to see how he transitions in the Appalachian State style run oriented offense. I think he's going to be okay. I think actually his stats are probably going to get pumped up. So if Marks Jr. is not excited, he should be because I think this offense is going to really accentuate his talents. They also go to the transfer portal to build some depth in that position as well. So it's going to be time will tell to see what's going to happen with the backfield for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Wide receiver position, they lost their top wide receiver, but they get back their number 2 and their number 3. And they had some depth in there from the transfer portal as well. So, going to be interesting to see how this transition in the offensive scheme for Mississippi State helps. I think they're probably not going to be running a lot of 5 wide spreads. So, I think with the number 2 and the number 3 wide receiver coming back, it does give them another element of the offense, but we'll see what the offensive coordinator from Appalachian State brings to the table uh, with this Bulldog squad. Offensive line 4 starters back, and they get a new offensive line coach from Auburn. So it's hard to tell if that transition will help, especially not most of those guys are pass blocking oriented, probably 90% of the time. So seeing them have to block against the run is going to be interesting how that transition occurs. Now you got the defense for Mississippi State. Now Mississippi State's typically had a pretty strong defense, but this year is going to be a little bit different. I think defensive line, big questions with only one starter back, so they're gonna have to fill a lot of voids there. The linebackers, however, should be pretty tough. They bring back their top 2 tacklers, and they have an all SEC linebackers in the backfield as well. So that's going to be a strength for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. But what you're going to see with the secondary is a little bit questionable against the pass. A lot of new guys, new faces in the secondary for Mississippi State Bulldogs. So I don't know if that's going to be a detriment to the defense or if it's going to be a strength. Big switch over, like I said, with the coaching staff overall. The former defensive coordinator, who was the interim coach in the bowl game, takes over as head coach. New offensive coordinator, and there's just a lot of switch over here. I think Marks Jr. is probably one of those guys we're going to have to watch to see if he's going to be the spark of the offense, rather than passing the torch from Will Rogers. I'm a kind of skeptical a little bit taking the ball out of Will Rogers' hands because he's such an electric passer. I just don't know if this offensive coordinator is going to really accentuate the talents of Will Rogers. Defense got a lot of holes on this one. So, Mississippi State coming off a 9-win season, but they have a tough schedule coming up here. 30th in the country overall. So I guess for an SEC team, that's not that tough. They do get LSU at home. They get Bama at home. They have to go on the road to go play A&M, and they also get Ole Miss at home. So ideally, looking at this team, I don't know if what we're gonna get. We're definitely not gonna get 9 wins out of them. I can tell you that for sure. 7 to 8 wins, I can see that happening, but I think this is no more than just a bowl eligible team at the end of the day. Now you have the game to watch on this one, of course, the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State winning the previous game. Interesting stat on this one: last 10 games, the underdog is 8-2 against the spread in this Egg Bowl matchup. So with all that being said, Mississippi State probably one of the weaker teams in the SEC West this year, with the transitions that's going on with the team and also the defense kind of being a little bit depleted on a lot of key positions with the team. All right, that's going to do it for Mississippi State. I'm going to move on to another team in here, rival to Alabama, the Crimson Tide. For some reason, I don't know, that really a rivalry anymore? I think LSU is probably more of a rivalry to Alabama now, but we'll see how that goes. But we're going to talk about the Auburn Tigers here. Auburn Tigers 5-7, 2-6 in the conference last year. 17 starters coming back, 8 on offense, 9 on the defensive side, and their strength of schedule in this one, they have the 11th toughest schedule in the country. That's going to be a key point in this one. Now, Finley was a quarterback last year for them, and he transferred out. So now they're down to Rob Ashford, who really didn't perform too well when he was in there last season. 49.2% pass completion rate, 7 touchdowns, 7 INTs. Um, but he is a good running back, mobile quarterback option for them with 719 yards rushing, 4.6 yards per carry. They also bring in a transfer in Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne, if you don't know who he is, he was the quarterback 2021 for the Michigan State Spartans. He had a successful outing for them in the Walker Jr. era when he was the quarterback there. 63.5% completion rate, 19 touchdowns, 11 INTs. Um, but I think, but I think with Thorne, he kind of rode the coattails of Walker and his success, and also that defense for Michigan State was absolutely electric in 2021. Running back position on this one, Tank Bigsby, solid, gone. He's not going to be there with the team anymore, but they have a good backup that actually played well when he got his touches in Jarquez Hunter. 6.5 yards per carry last season with the team. And also, they backed him up with a load of transfers that Hugh Freeze brought in for Auburn. So from the backup perspective, there's some depth in the running back. But if Jarquez Hunter can stay healthy, he's going to be something to watch. I think very good athlete. Yards per carry is great. I don't know if he's capable of taking the full load of the offense, but we'll see if that we'll see how that transitions as the season goes along here. Now, wide receiver core wasn't great last season. There was no wide receiver for Auburn in the top 500 yards receiving. They do get back their top 2 receivers, but I don't know how much that matters because we don't really have a true star on that team. And then also you got to consider the fact that the quarterback position for Auburn is in suspect mode altogether. They do go to non P5s to kind of add some depth in the transfers, but I don't know any of the names on this one. No one really sticks out as a star on the wide receiver core. So I don't really see this being a heavy passing offense. I think it's going to be kind of like stuck in the mud type of offense that they were stuck in last season. Offensive line is going to be absolutely brand new. So that is another caveat with this offense that scares me. They do bring in a new OC from Tulsa that can really, he's really good at building offensive lines. A lot of those transfers came over from Tulsa. So I don't know if this is going to help the team or hurt the team, but this line is going to be loaded with guys that have not worked together at all in a full season. Defensively, they go right to the transfer portal again to go fill in spots. They go to the P5, so they have guys that have starting experience at least. They were good against the run last year, especially with the D line, but not a great pass rushing team. So this is going to be a key point with this Auburn team. Can they get to the quarterback? Can they put pressure on him? Because the passing game is something that Auburn needs to learn how to stop here. Now you got the linebacker core. They lose some of their squad from last season, and they just bring in the transfers and fill in the void. So time will tell if they're going to be any good in this one. 2 starters come back, and they add some depth. But I think they'll be okay overall. But there's nobody that really it shocks and awes me in this Auburn defense. Secondary is probably their strength. They only gave up 15 touchdowns passing last season. So if there's a positive to this defense, it's in the secondary. They bring back the entire group, so that's going to be a veteran group, guys that know how to make stops in the secondary, play one-on-one coverage versus receivers. But like I said, if they're not putting pressure on the quarterback, that's going to be a detriment to this Auburn team. Overall, when you look at this team, tough schedule. They got to go to A&M. They got to play UGA at home. They got to go to LSU, Ole Miss at home, and Ole Miss will be off a bye in this game. By the way, in the Hugh Freeze revenge tour in the SEC, they got to go play Alabama at home. But this is going to be a key one here. If you actually look at right after they get out of non-conference play, Auburn has to play at A&M, at home Georgia, then they get a bye, then they got to go to LSU in the swamp, and then right after that they got to go play Ole Miss. Like I said, Ole Miss will be fresh off a bye in that game, so that's going to be a tough gauntlet that they're going to have to go through here this season. Toughest game for them game to watch, I should say. They got to play Alabama. Home team is 9-1-1 against the spread in the last 11, 9-2 straight up in this matchup at the Iron Bowl, and Auburn gets them at home. I don't think they're going to get a win, but man, they'll be. At the very least, they'll be able to keep it close with Alabama. We'll get to Alabama in a second. I got a lot to talk about with them. LSU. Is another one there. This is going to be kind of a revenge game because Auburn did lose to them 21-17. So there is a revenge factor there. However, how much is this going to be really a revenge factor? The fact that a lot of the players that were part of last year's team are probably gone. It's going to be a new starting quarterback. There's a new coaching staff. I don't know if this is going to have the feel of the vibes like, yeah, we need to go and get them for what they did to us last year. It doesn't really have that feel. But a key stat on this one, though, the underdog is 7-0 against the spread in the last 7 meetings. So keep that in mind when these two teams meet up because LSU, primarily being at home at the Swamp, and as good as LSU is going to be, I think LSU is going to be a true favorite on this one. So maybe it's going to be a good spot to take Auburn Tigers here based on that ATS history. So overall, I think this is another transitional team. They had 5 wins last season. They're going to be in the same position that they are this season, in my opinion, 6-6, maybe sneak into a bowl game. That would probably be the goal if I was Hugh Freeze, especially, not really having a quarterback that can run the offense is kind of scary. Plus, you got all the defensive holes that you're filling with transfers. It doesn't really feel like a team as a whole. I don't know if this is going to really work out for them in Hugh Freeze's first season coming off of Liberty. And we'll see what happens. But I think this team is probably another 2 or 3 years out before they're actually going to get back to the strength that they need to be if Hugh Freeze has the ability to recruit and get this team in order. All right, next team on the board, another interesting team. Sam Pittman, you are on the clock here, folks. I think this is back against the wall, Sam Pittman. We're talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks here, 7-6 last season, 3-5 in the conference. They bring back only 10 starters, 4 on the offensive side, 6 on the defensive side, but that doesn't include their top QB and their top running back. So, like I said, KJ Jefferson is back for Arkansas. He finished this season last year, 24 passing touchdowns, 5 INTs, and he rushed for 640 for 4.1 yards per carry. And he's been their starter there for 3 seasons. So you got the vet in the behind center, and you also bring back Raheem Sanders, who is the spark of this offense. You actually look at his stats; he had an amazing season in 2022. 1,443 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per carry. So at least from the backfield, you're in good hands with KJ and Raheem Sanders. Wide receiver, Corum. Top 4 wide receivers are gone. They lose all their receiving core altogether. They do, excluding one guy, and that is Bryce Stevens, who was their top receiver last year. I'm sorry. So they do lose their top 4 receivers on this one, right? And they only bring back one guy with starting experience, and that is Bryce Stevens. He only had 109 receiving yards last year. So this is going to be a brand new quorum of guys. And Pittman does a weird thing on this one, and we'll see if this works or not. The transfers that he added come from like D2 schools. He's not like even went deep into the P5 to go grab a receiver. He goes and picks up a couple of D2 school top wide receivers, and they also has to go to the MAC conference too as well, which is kind of interesting in this one. I think the wide receiver quorum is extremely weak for Arkansas in this one. I don't understand it at all. Maybe Pittman sees something in these guys that we're not seeing, but this is just a weird move for him to go build that wide receiver quorum. It's going to be tough for KJ Jefferson to get a pass, to get wide receivers to catch passes for him, in my opinion. Offensive line should be the strength of Arkansas. It has been for years. That's what Pittman's bread and butter is. 2 starters come back, including 2 all SEC players. So they're what they filled in the voids with transfers on this one from the linemen. They had a transfer from Florida. So it would be tough to match what they did last year because the running backs had 5.1 yards per carry average on the ground last season. But I have to trust what Pittman does with his offensive line. He hasn't really their offensive lines have never really been a letdown, even though they lost a lot of key starters. And of course, you got KJ Jefferson back there and Raheem Sanders. I'm sure they'll be able to figure out how to get the ball down the field. Hopefully, again with the run game. Now, the defense. Overall, I see the defensive line being the strength of this team. Okay, they only allowed 170 yards per carry, yards per game on the ground last season, and led the SEC in sacks with 42. They do lose 3 starters, but they add 4 D linemen from the transfer portal, and 2 of them received all conference nods with their former teams. So consider that aspect with the defensive line for Arkansas. They have 10 D linemen with starting experience, so the depth is there as well. So I see this as a squad that's improved from last year. So this is going to be one of the key points with Arkansas. Can they stop the run, and can they get the quarterback like they have in the past? Linebackers, a little bit weak on the linebackers, losing all their starters from 2022. Um, but they have to rely on a slew of transfers here. So a lot of them don't have starting experience as well. So if there's anything that the Arkansas is going to have to struggle with is, the linebackers, especially the middle linebacker, the Mike linebacker is the quarterback of the team, leading that front and doing the shifts. That's going to be something that I don't know how that's going to transition here for Arkansas. Secondary loses 3 starters, brings back 1, but they go to the transfer portal again to fill in the roles. So you have another squad here that is just a bunch of transfers, no team experience together. A lot of these guys, so I don't really know how this is going to work out for them. So, like I said, defensive line is their strength. They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to make the stops up front because if they get past that first level, my God, I don't know what you're gonna get here out of Arkansas. Overall, offense, not much has changed as far as the key guys are concerned. You still have Sanders, you still have Jefferson. The wide receiver core is weak, so this team just feels one dimensional to me. The defense also has to rely on the defensive line in their front to make a lot of the stops, and the linebackers in the secondary just don't look great on paper. I'm not really high on Arkansas this year at all. I think this is the falling knife, and they need to make a. They're probably going to make a head coaching change, whether they do it in season or after the season. This could be the year that you see that you will not see Sam Pittman running that team, and it really shows with this recruiting too, and the what he's done to go fill in some of these voids. He just did not do a good job with the transfer portal at all, knowing that he was weak at the wide receiver position and he was weak in some key defensive positions. He didn't go out there and really fill those voids, in my opinion. 38th toughest schedule as far as strength of schedule concerned. The game to watch is their first game of the season for the SEC against the SEC. They're gonna have to go to the Swamp at LSU. They lost to LSU 13-10 last season, so there'll be a little bit of a revenge factor there. But a key number here is Arkansas has won their last 2 SEC openers, so they may be able to shock the world and beat LSU. I'm not sure about that myself. Nothing. I'd have to see what the line is to even make a move on this one, but I would probably say that overall, Arkansas is not a team to be backing in any spots. This one, I don't think they're going to have a good season. They may even struggle making a bowl uh, with what they're bringing to the table. All right, next team to talk about here, folks. Running Rebels here, Ole Miss. We call them the Lane Train. And the Lane Train has come to the station this year, and my God, did he really excel at getting to the transfer portal and getting players uh, to accentuate parts of the offense that I felt was missing last season. You saw Ole Miss become a run first type of offense. Now you see starting to see, and I'll explain it when you look at this offense. They're getting back to what Lane wants to do, and he wants to air the ball out, and you can tell. 8-5 last season, 4-4 in conference. 16 starters come back, 9 on the offensive side, 7 on the defensive side, including their starting quarterback last season, Jackson Dart. He comes back to run the offense. He had some trouble here not turning over the ball. He had 11 INTs last season, but he's a good dual threat guy. He had 4.8 yards per carry on the ground running. So, like I said, Ole Miss was a big run team last year, which is kind of a shock because you've never really seen that with a Lane Kiffin style offense. but you did last year. Also, they do add some depth at the quarterback position. So even with Jackson Dart, who can get injured or is susceptible of getting injured, they go to Oklahoma State and get Spencer Sanders. Now, Spencer Sanders is more the prototypical quarterback that, quite frankly, Lane Kiffin likes because that guy is the number 2 all-time passer for the Pokes. And he also has mobility in the run game. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of a short leash they keep on Jackson Dart because I felt Jackson Dart wasn't a true 100% star, was 100% ready to run the Lane Kiffin offense in a lot of situations. But Spencer Sanders he's a competitor. He does frustrate you at times with his play, but the dude can pass. The dude can compete. He can play through injuries. We saw it last year. I thought he had a great year last year, and well, I think this is going to be could be a situation where we may see Spencer Sanders start on day one. But right now, I think it's going to be Jackson Dart, and I'm playing this into my cap at least early in the season. Now, look at the running back situation for the Miss Ole Miss. Uh, they're getting back their top running back in Keyshawn Junkins. If you actually looked at his stats last year, absolutely phenomenal. 5.7 yards per carry, 1,612 yards rushing on the ground. They do lose Zach Evans in the backfield. He had 6.5 yards per carry, but they add some freshman help that should be enough depth for him to, give him a break here and there. But Quinshawn Judkins is going to be the top running back star for this offense. Wide receiver. This is going to be the interesting one here. Okay, the top 2 wide receivers are gone for Ole Miss and Heath and Mingo. So Jordan Watkins and Dayton Wade will have to step up and take the reps and the looks for this offense. Kiffin also tried and true. Like when in doubt, he goes back to what he does best, and he's really good at dipping into the transfer portal and getting guys to buy into his system. Solid vets that he's bringing in here from the transfer portal. In here, he brings a lot Louisiana Tech's top wide receiver and Trey Harris. That get Caden Peak Storm from Memphis, who's a great wide receiver himself and knows how to run that air raid style coming from the Memphis Tigers. Also, they get the top wide receiver from UTSA. Now, if you've watched me in the past, I've always been boasting about how good UTSA is doing over there and what trailer the head coach is doing over there. They had Sincere McCormick. I think they still have Frank Harris in his 7th year with the team. This was a build that started from trailer, and Zachary Franklin was their top wide receiver. If you don't know who he is, you're gonna know who he is with this Ole Miss offense. He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, and overall, this wide receiver depth is quite impressive in my opinion. I hope these guys can transition with heavier competition in the SEC. But by God, if Jackson Dart can get his passing game situated, he's got the weapons to do it. Of course, I'm going to be interested to see what this offense brings to the table because I think they're going to be scoring a lot of points here. Also, got to look at the offensive line. 4 starters back from last year. This is a squad that allowed their running game to get 5.4 yards per carry rushing, and they only gave up 15 sacks all season. This is a great offensive line. They also go to the transfer portal to add depth and experience as well, because you're going to need that with a good offensive line. It's going to be one of the top offensive lines in the country, in my opinion, as far as protection is concerned. So this offense altogether really, really looks good on paper, from the running back to the quarterback. A lot of depth there. The wide receivers, of course. I think Lane Kiffin did a damn good job to rebuild this offense and try to bring it back to what it was, a pass-oriented with the sprinkle of the run. I can't wait to see what this team brings to the table. All right, defensively, this is one of the things with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin teams. You just never get a good defense out of his squads. They bring back 2 starters on the defensive line, and they just build their depth of transfers. This is a D line that got absolutely gashed against the run last season. Terrible versus their conference opponents. They just couldn't stop the run at all. So this year they're going to be switching their defense up completely. New defensive coordinator, so they're switching to a 3-4 style defense. So let's see if that transition helps them, especially against the run. Big question though, when you have a 3-4, you have to add in the additional linebacker, and their linebacker core to me is in question. They only bring back their 5, 7, and 9 top tacklers from last season. And they added some depth though on the defensive side with the linebackers getting a transfer from Louisville, transfer from GMU, and a transfer from Central Florida. Uh, but they will need the depth and experience as they transition to the 3-4. That's going to be quite an ordeal for them with lacking linebacker depth. Uh, on the uh, defensive backside and the corners in the secondary, very depleted. Only bring back one starter, so Kiffin had to go to the transfer portal once again. Added 4 transfers with experience in starting from Georgia Tech, UCF, North Texas, and Miami of Ohio. I don't know if this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing with this team, but I don't really know much about these guys. So let's see if they can actually get together and gel. So solid, not a solid unit last year anyway, so I don't think they're gonna be losing much traction. So we'll see. Only one way to go. The bar's very set, very low for this defense, and very, very high for the offense, in my opinion. So the new DC is Pete Golding. He comes over from Bama, so that is a good sign there. Bama's had some really good defenses, and this guy is good at turning around defenses altogether. And going to a 3-4 is his bread and butter. He was a defensive coordinator there for 5 years, and historically, like I said, he's always been able to turn around these defenses. So, a lot of promise there for the Ole Miss Rebels this season. Offense going back to its roots, in my opinion, going back to a strong passing game, getting away from the run that they had to do last year because really Jackson Dart was not providing the passing confidence that Lane Kiffin wants. They go get Spencer Sanders as well, so I'm kind of interested on how that's going to work out there for the quarterback. Is there going to create some tension there with Jackson Dart and Spencer Sanders? I don't know. Last year they lost 5 out of their last 6 games of the season, so that kind of played into how bad they were overall. They finished 4-4 in the conference, but they had a plus 79 net yard average. So what you see there is there's a lot of outliers that could happen in these games, especially in those that window of losses that they had. There's a lot of close games in there in those situations as well. So maybe with the moves that Kiffin made, this is a positive for Ole Miss. Games to watch this season, you got to look at Bama. Lost them at home 30-24 last year, leading late in the third quarter, by the way. But the fourth quarter, they got absolutely shut out by the Bama defense, and that was game over, lights out. Bama gets the win. Also, you got to look at UGA first meeting with Smart and Kiffin. This is going to be an interesting game overall. No real stats on this one because these two teams really aren't historically met. So it's going to just be a game to watch. Very tough schedule for Ole Miss altogether. 12th strongest schedule in the country, and they have 2 road games with Bama and UGA. Could be a tough season for them altogether. Could they get to 8 wins? Oh, sure, they could get to 8 wins. They could probably even sneak out an upset against Bama or UGA. I don't know, but um, I will just sit back and watch this team altogether. No real feel for them, but I think the offense is going to be very, very interesting. And if the defense can somehow hold teams and make stops, I don't know if there's going to be many teams in the conference that can stop this electricity that the Ole Miss offense brings to the table. All right, moving on to the next team on the board as we're sitting 35 minutes in. And we're going to say thank you for watching. If you're watching this now, later, or whenever before football season, I want to say shout out to you and shout out. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Sports Wagering Network YouTube channel. And make sure you put the comments in there, hit the likes, and do all the funky business with the buttons. All you have to do is click the mouse a couple times around my videos just to make sure that we're shown everywhere and sharing this sharp information across all lands. I'm going to be doing another SEC show probably Sunday or Monday, and we'll transition doing 2 shows a week for each one of the conferences to give them the proper analysis. But and also shout out to the sponsor Viva Tequila Seltzers. Also, make sure you get into the comments. I want to talk to you people too. I want to get your thoughts. What are you thinking about the SEC this year? What do you think of the SEC West? What are the teams that you're looking out for? What are the locks that you want to bring to the table? Or hell, just tell me what you're doing on 4th of July weekend. That'd be awesome as well. All right. This is an interesting one here, folks. As we move along the board, Texas A&M, the Aggies, lackluster at best last season. 5-7, didn't even make a bowl. Very disappointing season for Jimbo Fisher. 2-6 in the conference. This year, maybe a different story, at least on paper. 20 returning starters, 10 on offense, 10 on defense, 24th toughest schedule on the board this season. Let's look at the quarterback position, okay? Last year, it was a mess. The quarterback position was a mess. It was a carousel, right? They had Max Johnson, they had Haynes King, and they had Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman, a true 5-star freshman. Um, Haynes King is now gone. He got benched in the first 2 games. They go to Max Johnson. And then he lasted 3 games before hurting his thumb. Then he had to go to Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman stepped in, got back-to-back wins for LSU against LSU and UMass. And then Johnson and Wegman went back and forth as the starter of the team. This season, I would like to think it's going to be Wegman's going to be the starter. I know he is a highly touted recruit from the 2022 class. Got pulled into the position, was not supposed to play this season, and didn't do too bad. Actually, both quarterbacks, Johnson and Wegman, very good at taking care of the football. 0 interceptions given up by each of them last season. I think even Johnson, when he played that 1 year at LSU, he had only 6 INTs with 28 touchdowns. So both quarterbacks do take care of the football, and more of the fact that the success of A&M last season was more predicated on the fact that they couldn't get a healthy quarterback in there for a full season. So I think this year is going to be a whole different story here for the Aggies and Jimbo Fisher. Now you get the running back position. Big question mark. Big shoes to fill, I should say, with Devin Achane gone for them. Sole source of offense, great running back, elite guy. They do bring back 2 vets and Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels, who carried the ball and did well in the opportunities that were given them. But they also have a top recruit, top running back coming in Reuben Owens to give them additional depth. I think between the 3 of them, it should be able to level that production that Devin Achane brought to the table. But only time will tell here. I think it's the running back depth and the names that are on there are going to be able to do very well in the backfield here. Offensive line, they bring back the entire unit here. Great offensive line. They were young and inexperienced last year, giving up a 6.4% sack rate and 4.6 yards per game rushing. So they should be a lot improvement on the offensive line here for the Aggies. I think the line is going to be surprisingly good, and people are they're very underrated here. I think people looked at them last year and said, well, they didn't really do that good of a job. But I'm telling you, if you actually look at a lot of these interviews with Jimbo Fisher and a lot of the coaching staff last year, they kept saying that we're in a rebuilding year. Wait till you see us next year was kind of the mode that they had. It's like we're in a phase where it's not this year. You need to look at us. It's next year, and now they're in next year. And when we get into the defense on this one, very impressive defense here as well. Let's talk about them here. So the A&M defense last year they had to replace their entire defensive line. Okay, that kind of predicated a lot of the defensive woes early on in the season because they lacked the experience. However, if you actually look at the recruiting that Jimbo Fisher did, he got some of the top defensive guys in the country. 4 out of them came out of the top 10 here, folks. All 4 starters back this year because they were just young freshmen last year. Some of those guys are going to be stars and actually showed out here. So they had the number 2, the number 9, the number 14, and the number 17th ranked overall guys from the 2022 recruiting class. All of them defensive linemen, by the way. And that's their starting 4 altogether here. 4.8 yards per carry. They stopped the run, only allowing 209 yards per game overall on the defensive side. So not bad for a young squad. Now a year older, a year wiser. This is going to be a very, very tough line to stop. And I'm looking for big, big things to come out of them this season, as far as not only stopping the run, but also putting pressure on the quarterback. Linebacker core has some concerns for sure. 3 starters do return and they had a transfer. But if they stay healthy, they're going to be just fine. This is a good linebacker core. However, you get one injury and you have to replace them and you're lacking depth, that's going to be a concern. Secondary, they bring back 2 starters. They do add Tony Grimes, who's a really good corner from UNC. And they add another good corner here in Josh DeBerry from BC. So those are vital players to add to this great secondary for the Texas A&M Aggies. So experience is there, the depth is there. I think this is going to be a underrated squad. They are very stout, stopping the pass. If you actually look at their history, 156 yards per game passing last season. Hopefully, they can carry that torch on. And by the looks of the roster for the secondary, not too shabby. So let's break these down. A synopsis of the overall outlook of this team. So the quarterback position was a problem for them last year. I think that's fixed. I think they have 2 good quarterbacks in Wegman and Johnson. I think Wegman's going to be the starter in there. I just think he competed a lot better than Johnson did. They have an improved offensive line. They have a healthy wide receiver core. I forgot to get to that as well. A healthy Aeneas Smith is coming back for them, who really didn't have a good season because he was dealing with injuries. So getting him back in the lineup is going to improve them as well. Offensive line is going to be stout. Defensive line is going to be absolute electric, one of the best in the country. They're going to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. I can't wait to see these guys play in September here. So this team is going to be great. Team is underrated in a lot of spots here. This is a team we need to look at from a win totals perspective. If you actually look at the games that they played last year, dealing with the injuries, dealing with the carousel at the quarterback, they lost 7 games last season, but 5 of them they lost by 6 points or less. I like teams like that, though. If you lose by a possession or more, anything could have happened in that game. It could have been a fumble. It could have been a miscue on one play. There's a lot of outliers there that changed the game. But what it shows me is this young squad fought in with complete adversity, everything against them, and still is able to compete with anybody in the country. This is a much, much improved squad, and we need to look at them not only as the top team in the SEC West. This could be a team that could really compete and win in the conference, in my opinion. But they do have a tough schedule. I will give them that. They have to go on the road to the Swamp at LSU, which I believe is a revenge game for LSU. And then they got at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, and then they get Bama, thankfully, at home. Last time they played them at home, last second field goal. So you know that Jimbo Fisher has the ability to beat his former mentor in Nick Saban. Games to watch, I forgot to get to that. Speaking of which, Alabama lost by 4 last season to them in Tuscaloosa. They did beat them by a last-second touchdown the year before that. But in that game, they got to the 2-yard line and just failed to convert the touchdown to get them over the edge to win the game. And that was the end of it, folks. And then, of course, they got LSU last season. Both teams had a lot of big expectations. LSU proved out. Texas A&M did not. The dog is covered in the last 3 matchups. I will say that. And I obviously, Texas A&M going to be the dog in this spot here against LSU. But the outlook of this team, everything's on the up and up for Jimbo here. I think this is going to be his prove it year. This is his team. This is his great recruiting class that he brought in. I think this is going to be one of those epic teams here. And if Wegman and Johnson can just move the offense down the field and limit mistakes, i.e. INTs, which they are very capable of doing, they take care of the football well. I think this is going to be a tremendous team to contend for the SEC West crown. All right. As I take a sip here, watch you 3 beautiful bastards watching me live here. I appreciate you going through this ride with me. going through every single team in the SEC West. And if you don't already, like and subscribe to the channel, damn it. What are you here for? All right. Now we're getting to the bread and butter, the nuts and bolts of it. We got 2 teams left here before we give out our plays. Let's go to LSU. All right. LSU had an immaculate season last year. Brian Kelly really had those guys cooking. 10-4 season overall. 15 starters are back for them this season. 8 on the offensive side, 7 on the defense. 13th toughest schedule in the country. So, looking at the quarterback, running back position for them, LSU brings back their top quarterback last year in Jalen Daniels. He was the quarterback first season with LSU coming over from Arizona State. Did a good job with the offense, in my opinion, primarily with his speed, obviously. So we'll see if he can actually improve the passing game. They also bring back a slew of running backs, their top 4 rushers, and they add Logan Diggs from Notre Dame. I personally know Logan Diggs. I've watched him play as a player. He is a great ad for LSU. I was disappointed to see him leave. The dude will be able to uh, jump into that spot and really give them that LSU offense some good reps. So great transfer move from Brian Kelly. So the ground game to me going to be in great shape. You got Jalen Daniels and that dual threat and a slew of running backs that can take care of the football. So I think this running game is going to be just as strong as last year, if not stronger. Wide receiver, of course, they lose Kayshon Boutte to the draft. I think he went over to the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. But he wasn't the top wide receiver last year, ironically enough. It was Malk Neighbors. So he comes back, including 3 others that combined for over 2,000 yards receiving, 12.5 yards per catch. So the wide receiver quorum should be great. Also, they do add a transfer from Alabama in Aaron Anderson. So wide receiver wise should be improved. I know they do lose Kayshon Boutte, kind of a key loss, but he really didn't fit into the offense last year that Brian Kelly brought to the table, and really dropped down, in my opinion. And now you got the wide receiver core. I'm probably in a position where it's more predicated on what Brian Kelly wants to do on the offensive side. Offensive line brings back 4 returning starters. They did struggle in the pass rush last year, so that's something to watch. But that was more due to they basically had to replace their left tackle and right tackle with true freshmen. So another year older, another year wiser, better on the strength, better on form, balance, whatever it takes to be a good lineman in college football. I think they'll be better in those 2 positions, bringing back both guys with experience. So this is going to be a strength for this team. I think this LSU line overall, with the experience that they're bringing back, is going to be very tough. Defense, D line is a question mark to me. They lost all but 1 starter, loaded up on the transfers on this one. This is what you're going to see with the 2023 squad. They do get a key player back from injury on that line that didn't play at all last season. So we'll see if this defensive line steps up to the level that they should. Linebackers are going to look real strong. They bring back their top 3 tacklers, and they get first-team Pac-12 linebacker Omar Speights from Oregon State. Big ad from the transfer portal for them. So that linebacker core is going to be absolutely stout, in my opinion. Secondary did lose a lot. They only get 1 starter back. They did load up from the transfer portal to fill in the voids. No real key names, in my opinion, though. So that might be a question mark for me on the defensive side here for LSU. Overall, looking at this team, from last season, their defense was basically in line or slightly better than last season, giving up 22 points per game last season. So are they in line the same way before? I guess only time will tell. I do have some question marks for them, especially in the passing game. Offense will be their driver, I think, on this one. This is going to be a real key point for LSU with Daniels back and healthy, an improved offensive line, depth at the running back position. Really puts Kelly's offense in a place that he wants to be. Schedule does include some tough games, though. They have to play Florida State in week 1. This is a neutral site game. We saw it last year. Missed field goal to end the game. Really ruined it for LSU. And then, of course, and that would have taken to overtime, I believe. That was a week 1 game. They have to go on the road to Ole Miss. They go on the road to Alabama, and they got to go play A&M at home. So overall, schedule-wise, there are some tough spots for them. I don't necessarily believe uh, they will have any real tough times the way this team is built. I think this is going to be a good squad, maybe just as good as what they were last season. So Florida State's definitely going to be a revenge game for them. I fully expect Brian Kelly to have that team prepared for that one. They also have a tough game with Alabama. A&M, which is going to be a game to watch. LSU did lose to A&M 38-23 when they were number 6 in the country. Remember, last game of the season, in contention for a college football playoff spot, and they laid an egg, giving up any chance for them to get into the college football playoff. And also, you got to consider this is senior day for LSU at home, and LSU has won 6 straight on senior day. So that's going to be something to consider here in this spot as well. Maybe a good spot to take LSU at home. But that's pretty much what I see for a synopsis on this one. Overall, I think LSU is going to be one of the toughest teams in the SEC West. They're fully built to do it. Jalen Daniels, I think, is going to be a key element to this offense to see if he's grown in maturity and can really outperform himself this year that he did last year. So excited for the LSU Tigers as I'm wearing the hat on my head. All right. Last, but certainly not least, we had to do it. We have to talk about him, right? We have to talk about Alabama, the Crimson Tide. A lot of disappointment there from Nick Saban. Nick Saban took his aggressions out on Kansas State in the bowl game. Quite impressive performance from Alabama overall, but a lot of changes here. A lot of changes that make me question, is Bama still Bama? All right, let's break it down here. 11-2 last season, 10 starters back for him, so that's kind of typical. Bama always loses a lot of starters to the draft. 5 on offense, 6 on defense coming back. But here's where everything kind of falls apart here. Let's talk about the offense first. Starting this season without their OC, of course, O'Brien, going to the New England Patriots. So what do they do to replace him? In a last-second ditch move, which doesn't make any sense to me, they go and get Tommy Rees from Notre Dame to run their offense. And they also get former starting quarterback for Notre Dame, Tyler Buchner, who lost his job to Sam Hartman in the transfer, who transferred over from Wake Forest. So he's really sitting in the lead position to run the offense, which I just he doesn't strike me as a Bama quarterback at all. He's not a 5-star quarterback that comes out of one of the toughest football schools in the country, whether it be wherever they come from. And they also get Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees didn't strike me as a great offensive coordinator either. So I'm scratching my head on this move altogether. And it seems like it's a panic move by Nick Saban. I know he was a little bit pissed off, and he's being a little bit more ornery lately with the transition of how college football is altogether. Maybe we're starting to see the full effects of what he has been pissed off about this season. So they lose Bryce Young. Bryce Young, obviously the number 1 draft pick from the Carolina Panthers. Big shoes to fill. Also, they lose their top running back in Gibbs, and most of their wide receiver core. So there's some issues there on the offensive side that make me question this. But as we always see with Alabama, to me, they always seem to step up with their recruiting classes, guys that we don't know that end up being absolute electric performers that are just above and beyond athleticism in a lot of in their not only their conference but in college football. Top 2 wide receivers are back though, however, for Bama in Burton and Brooks. But this unit did suffer a lot last season. A lot of drops which is uncharacteristic from Alabama wide receivers. So they're gonna have to prove a little bit on the receiving game, especially trying to build some sort of connection and vibe with the new quarterback change, not having Bryce Young this season. in having Tyler Buckner or whoever to run the offense. But it seems like Tyler Buckner is the lead candidate. Offensive line, two returning starters from last season, and not a lot of starting reps from any of the guys that are backing them up. So protection could be a concern. And with Buckner, you saw him with Notre Dame. When the protection broke down, he would break down. So I'm a little bit concerned on that one for the a lot of question marks here for Alabama offense, in my opinion. Now on the defensive side, they lose 7 out of their 8 top tacklers from last season. Will Anderson Jr. is gone. Choya Toya is gone. Helms is gone. Those were their top defensive players. And of course, their linebackers are all down. This is an inexperienced roster altogether. Granted, it is Alabama. I do understand that next man up mentality. I just don't know enough about the guys that are coming up. I just know they lack experience getting reps and starts. Now you got to look at the secondary for them in the coverage. They do get one of the top cornerbacks in college football coming back in Kool-Aid McKinstry, but they lose both of their top safeties. They do add a transfer from UAB to kind of handle the what's lacking there in the safety position. But this defense, to me, full rebuild. I mean, when you lose that many top tacklers and you only really bring back one key star in Kool-Aid, this is a team that I don't see them winning 10 games at all here, folks. I don't know what I mean, I can't understand it myself. So everything that I found about this is just, Nick Saban is rebuilding. I I mean, he's panicking. He loses his OC. He goes and grabs Notre Dame's OC, who really doesn't have that much experience being a offensive coordinator. They bring a quarterback in that showed that he had his struggles trying to perform even at Notre Dame against teams that are lacking the competitiveness that SEC teams bring to the table. I don't know why people think this is one of the top teams in the SEC West. So I think it's going to be a tough year for Saban. Maybe the toughest year since he's been there. At least in my recent memory, you look at his schedule. He's going to go play Texas at home. Texas is going to be salivating over this Bama team, especially coming off that tragic short loss in Texas. They get Ole Miss at home. They get at A&M. They get Tennessee at home and LSU at home. I think if there's anything with the schedule that favors them is the toughest games on their schedule, they get them at Tuscaloosa, a place that historically Alabama has performed well. They're 66-2 straight up at home, dating back to 2013, and they're 38, 27, and 3 against the spread at home. So this is going to be an interesting year from a not only a Bama fan perspective or just a college football fan in general. I just think that this feels like this is the year where we may see the changing of the guards here, whether it be LSU, whether it be A&M, whether it be Ole Miss. I think there's just teams in there that are virtually, at least this season, on the level of Bama. Like I said, games to watch. The Texas game, we got to be watching that one. That game ended at 20-19. Remarkable job from Bryce Young carrying that team on his back to get that victory. Without him, they wouldn't have been in that spot. And quite frankly, if they were in that position with the team that they have now, I don't think Buckner would have got it done for Bama. Also, they're going to play A&M. A&M is going to be one of the top circle games. It's a revenge game for A&M last season, losing at the 2-yard line in Tuscaloosa. Bama 2-7 against the spread is way favorites, so that'll be something to watch on that one to see who's going to be the favorite in that game. With 3 outright losses, the away favorite is on that game, and A&M upset them last time they played at A&M. So key points on that one. Maybe a game we circle here in October. But overall, I think this is going to be a down year for Bama here. I don't think this is a team that's going to be the team that's going to represent them in the SEC championship. They have too many weird transitional holes. A lot of, you have to build a relationship with the wide receivers. I don't think Tyler Buckner is really equipped to do that. He was playing at Notre Dame in the spring, okay? It's not like he's been with the team all season long. There's a transitional. He hasn't been able to build any sort of rapport with the wide receivers at all at Alabama, and you also have the OC transferring over there, and he's brand new, not working with his guys. It seems like this is a down year for Bama, but of course, Nick Saban could prove me wrong. Of course, the schedule kind of works in Bama's favor if there's any strong points in this one. But is this team going to win 11 games? Is this team going to win 10 games? I guess time will tell, but it's really tough for me to put them in a spot where I think they're going to be one of the top teams in college football. All right. So that is every single team in the SEC West I just broke down for you. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you just joined now. And make sure you follow us along all college football season. If you don't know what my record is with college football, I was 169, 136, and 6 last year, plus 45 units, 55.4%. Last 3 years, 40, 40, 440, 371, and 7, plus 80.2 units, 54.3%, baby. That's how we do it. We fire shots. Pun in the chat. My producer is saying, down year for Saban, eh? Music to my ears. Listen. I hate to say it. I really do. But when I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the roster, it feels like it's going to be a down year for him. But let's talk about win totals, okay? Here are my picks for the win totals that I believe are the best value, okay? So A&M over 8 wins. I think this is a much improved team. The guys that they're bringing back are 5-star recruits. They played well as freshmen. They built up their experience more than they would get on other programs. This is going to be a team to watch. I think they're going to win at least 9 games, maybe 10, but they're going to absolutely compete. And they also get Bama at home, which really helps them out as well. So they'll have a few losses in there, but I think getting over 8 wins is feasible for the Aggies. Auburn, full transitional mode, under 7 wins. I couldn't find 6. I think they're in the same position they were last season. Hugh Freeze is not the answer right now. Maybe he is down the road, but with the voids that they filled with the transfers and also the quarterback controversy and not really knowing who the starter is going to be is a concern here for me with Auburn. And then we just talked about Alabama under 10.5 wins. I think they do not get to 11. I think there are spots in the schedule where they're going to have at least 2 losses again, maybe 3. And quite frankly, with the panic mode button that was pressed to go get a quarterback and an OC, guys that aren't proven to be successful in that position yet, I think this is going to be a tough year for Alabama. Also, we're going with LSU over 9.5 wins. I think this team is revving up as Brian Kelly tends to do with his teams. I don't see him not getting 10 wins again this season. But those are the plays that pay the bills, baby. And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, Sports Wagering Network. I'm going to break down the SEC East probably tomorrow, same time, same channel. And make sure you check that out here on the Sports Wagering Network. So till then, we will take a little break from college football. We will be back. Let's rev it up. Let's cash some tickets. Let's get excited for what is going to be college football in its element, in its prime. Feel the song, feel the rhythm, feel the goosebumps. You saw my plays right here, baby. Those are the ones to pick. I will have some more tomorrow, and I may be picking my prediction for the SEC championship winner. All right, that's going to do it here, folks. Thanks for watching. Let's cash some tickets today, tomorrow, and into college football. Good luck, and as always, let's keep dancing. Bye.